Good evening. We will call this regular meeting of the Fargo School Board to order. We do have an agenda in front of us. I would entertain a motion. Jim?
I move we accept the agenda as provided with the addition of the HR addendum that was at our workstation to be added to 6B, the human resource actions.
Second.
Okay. Agenda's motions on the floor. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. We will proceed. The next item on the agenda is recognition of the audience. We do have 3 members that have signed up to address us tonight. I will read a statement, as I usually do, prior to those speakers. When it is your turn, just please step up to the microphone and we'll go through the details here. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and address for the record. We would also ask that speakers refrain from using this forum to criticize or complain about a specific employee by name. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond to or debate issues in this forum. Should you request a written response to a specific question, you may request it. This evening, each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 5 minutes. The first person who has signed up to address the board is Eric Henriksen. Eric, welcome.
I'd actually rather talk to 350 kindergarten kids. It's less nerve-wracking. My name is Eric Henriksen. I'm at 3702 Dorothea Court South in Fargo. I'm the principal at Longfellow Elementary. I've been a part of this district for 22 marvelous years, and I've had the pleasure to work at 5 buildings in the district and have served 2 years as FEA president, so I get it. I completely understand what's going on, but I come to this meeting with a heavy heart. Last Wednesday, I heard a constant theme of educators feeling they are not valued. The people who are working with children every day are not feeling valued, and that makes me sad. We are seeing more and more children with greater needs than we've ever seen before, children who have extreme trauma in their life, which in turn can cause extreme behaviors. More than ever, we need to value everybody in education, from teachers to paras, custodians, bus drivers, even us principals, librarians, and anybody else who's working with children. I am lucky enough to be surrounded by the most outstanding staff in the world who comes to school every day trying to improve the lives of those students that they have. We are a family. We laugh together, we cry together, sometimes we get mad at each other, but we are a family through and through. I count my blessings every day to be that I'm a part of a group I truly love and admire. I want to share a quick story that demonstrates this amazing family. So just before Christmas, I had a staff member's father passed away unexpectedly. As a teacher, her first concern was her classroom. What was going to happen? She wanted to start planning for a sub and ensuring her class was going to be okay. Her grade level partner stepped up and said, "We got it. Be with your family." We had many staff members who wanted to go to the funeral. And once again, everybody stepped up and said they could cover a class, take some extra kids, do whatever's necessary so their colleague could attend the funeral. They did all these amazing things because they wanted to make sure the kids in her class were taken care of so she could focus on her family. They did whatever it takes. In education, we do whatever it takes, and that's what I am asking the board and FEA to do and get a 2-year contract done. As the chairman said last Wednesday, this won't fix everything, but I'm ready to roll up my sleeves, get to work on healing. This is a great district with phenomenal students, staff, and families, and I am personally optimistic that this can be done and we can start to turn things around again, but once again, I implore both sides to get a deal done so we can become whole again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. Next speaker is Victoria Johnson. Welcome, Victoria.
Mind if I pass this before I stated my name? My name is Victoria Johnson, and I live in 3019 18th Street South. Both Ms. Knudsen and Mr. Paulson, you can open that letter, and I'm sure you're confused what you're looking at, right? There's a point to that. I swapped the information Mr. Paulson has Ms. Knudsen's information, and she has Mr. Paulson information in that envelope. I did a research on everybody on this board. Some of the information was too sensitive for me to share. Out of respect, I did not put it in an envelope. But that's what happened as a mom. When I come home and I open my mailbox, I receive a letter like this from Fargo Public School with my name, my son's name in the back of the envelopes addressed to me, but inside I'm pulling another student information. Having sensitive information, their date of birth, mom's information, address, everything, that's a problem. Didn't happen to me once, not only twice, 3 times. This is a huge concern. As a parent and a privacy, who has my son information out there? Who? I don't know. If it's happening to me, how many other Fargo Public School parents are receiving this letter? So I did this just to show a point of really how serious this is. Last week I received an email. This is an email, and guess what? I don't know how I got CC into this email. And it's a teacher sending an email to other staff members. My name popped in the email. I thought, what? I read this twice and I thought, okay, I'm losing my mind. I had to give it to a friend. I said, can you read this? Am I looking at this right? She goes, a teacher sent it? I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh my gosh. How did my name get in there? How did that happen? This is a communication between her and her colleagues. But for some reason, my name popped in there. And that message was sent to me. I have it in an email. I know when I can use it. I know there's come a time I will need that information. But it was scary to me. But if something like that is happening, I think you guys need to look into this. How do you stop this? Because as a parent, that scares me. Knowing that somebody could have my son's birth date, his name, his address, my phone number, everything of mine, that somebody else has it. So that's a really big concern. And if you need your own information, I can give it to you, because some of them was very interesting, information I found about board members, about you and your family and your income and it's just very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Brenda Real. You know what to do.
I
Welcome.
do, thank you. And you don't need my name and address, because
We're
you
good.
kind of know
Thank
that.
you.
Okay. I wanted to share some data from the North Dakota Systemic Improvement Plan that was reported to the IDEA Advisory Committee by the Department of Public Instruction staff. And it has to do with the 4-year graduation rate. For students without disabilities, that graduation rate, and this is state data, is 90%. For students with emotional disturbance, that hovers in the 50+ range. And for all students with disabilities, it's a 68% graduation rate. The improvement plan that was submitted to the Office of Special Education indicated the goal was to increase the graduation rate of students with emotional disturbance on IEPs. The school environment is a determinant factor in which students on IEPs are most likely to graduate. If a student on an IEP is in a regular classroom, about 75% will graduate. Not the greatest, but 75%. That same school environment is also a determinant factor in what students on IEPs are least likely to graduate. So students in resource rooms, 65% will graduate. Students in separate classrooms in schools, 10%. So given this data, I would hope that the board should be able to recognize that students placed in separate settings will not graduate, except for 10%, and therefore Fargo Public Schools will not be meeting the state improvement plan to increase graduation for students with emotional disturbance on an IEP. So several times during the LRED task force meeting, it was stated by district administration that a level D school, was not just for special education students. So each time this was challenged and further questioned, and we asked how a student would enter a level D setting if they were not on an IEP, since a level D is defined as a separate setting under the federal definition of school environment settings for students on IEPs. The last time that question or issue was brought up in the task force, the Fargo SPED director stated that the level D is defined under IDEA for students on IEPs. And yet, although there's been no transparency on the issue, the question of what students will be placed into the level D setting remains. In one of the work group sessions after the State of the Fargo Public School presentation last week, Jim Johnson told the group that he was in that it wasn't just special education students who exhibit the challenging behaviors. So once again, will students not on IEPs be in the level D school with students on IEPs? During the task force, Fargo Public Schools was asked to provide data on the EDP program at Agassiz, which is the emotionally disturbed program, and to share if that was a level D setting. It was, after several times asked, shared that it was a level D setting. So the data that was provided to the group by the district indicated the following. Students with IEPs in that program were 65.4%. Students with 504 plans in that program were 9.6%. And students without an IEP or 504 plans was 25%. So, and given that one of the schools that the Fargo Public School administration staff and board members visited has 134 enrolled students with only 3 on IEPs, why are the other 131 students in that level 4, which is our North Dakota level D setting, if they do not have a disability that meets the criteria for an IEP? Who will the students on IEPs with social, emotional, and behavioral health needs be going to school with? So last week at the FEA FPS Fact Finding Commission, it was repeatedly stated that this board is not transparent. Given that for over 2 years it has been stated time and again that it isn't just special ed children, students with disabilities placed into level D school, is there a lack of transparency regarding this matter? I also wonder if you, the board, have been made aware of the state improvement plan or the data as it relates to the very students the district intends to place in this separate school. The state is from North Dakota, and it's available from the Department of Public Instruction, your SPED administration, or I'd be happy to share it with you. I would hope that you've already received it, considered it, and discussed this in your decision to place students on IEPs in a separate segregated school. Because when you look at the data, it shows that in our state, these kids aren't graduating. They're least likely to succeed in a separate setting. Those aren't my P&A crazy ideas. Those are data. So I would just encourage you to look at that data and to look at that graduation rate and to look at who is the least likely and the most likely to succeed on IEPs. So thank you.
All right, thank you for those of you that addressed the board this evening. The next item on the agenda is a guest report, and Dr. Gandhi, would you like to make introductions?
Sure. This evening, we are going to have Becky Bucky from the Fargo Public Schools Development Foundation provide an annual report that she normally does on our Fargo Public Schools Foundation. As most of you know, I get to sit as a director on that development board as well, and then our board representative is Christy. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Becky.
Well, thank you very much for having me tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to give you a brief update about what we've been up to this past year. I think you have some handouts. I'm going to just dive a little deeper into the numbers on the blue one that kind of matches my jacket. That was not on purpose. One of the major things we do year in and year out is distribute innovative education and literacy grants. We have 2 innovative ed grant rounds a year, one due on October 1st and one due on February 1st. And the Eleanor Langlaw Literacy Grant, which is due March 31st, those funds are distributed the following school year. This past year, we gave out 30 grants, a little over $51,000 worth of grants. We celebrate those grants at a fall event every year. And At this event, we celebrate grants we've given out, programs we help support, anything and everything to do with Fargo Public Schools, students, teachers, and staff that we've helped with or have helped us. We're very appreciative of the time and talent that come to that event and give extra time to us to showcase what they've done during the school year. A couple of grants that were showcased at this event were the Matthew Cordell Author Visit, which is a grant submitted by Amy Soma. And that grant had Matthew Cordell, award-winning author, was able to go to every elementary school in the district and talk about his books and his writing with the elementary students. Another grant we had showcased was the Fargo North Experiential Learning Grant. That was by Don and Renee, Don Bolstead and Renee Schwant. They are teachers at Fargo North in the intellectual and multiple impairments disability classes they have there. And every year, they try to, or more than once during the year, try to take their students on field trips and things. And in this particular instance, they took them to the 10-7 Acres Farm. And students spent time there with the alpacas, the horses, chickens, ducks, you name it, anything that's on a farm. And what that does for these students is not only do they learn about farming practices and about all the different kinds of animals and their background, it gives them an authentic learning experience so that they're able to go out with real life experiences to assist those students to understand and engage in the community and help teach students to live as independently as possible. It was really great having them there. They have great stories and great pictures, and it was just nice having all those booths there and having the public be able to come in and see all the great things that teachers and staff do for Fargo Public Schools students. A couple grants recently, this past grant round that we funded, I'm happy to say that Here for the Kids podcast, we helped fund some of that, which was a really great taste of that at the State of the Schools event. It was really well done. I think that's going to be a great thing for parents in our district to listen to. And we also give grants out for lots of STEAM projects, for example, a 3D printer at Bennett Elementary. That was our most recent grant round. The other major thing we do that we have upcoming as scholarship, we're heading into scholarship season. Students are starting to ask for applications, fill out their dollars for scholars things. Last year we gave out over $102,000 in scholarships to all 4 high schools. Each year we manage and help distribute funds to these students all across the nation to all kinds of different schools and colleges and universities. And we present them usually at their May awards ceremonies. And there's 43 different annual and adult scholarships across all 4 schools. And last year we added 3 new scholarships, and this year I think we'll add two more new scholarships. So that keeps growing every year, which is great, both endowed and annual. So we always are happy to, not only does it give them, we know college is expensive, it also gives students, I think they get the message that we support them in their next stage of education, and I think it gives them a certain amount of confidence as they pursue their college degrees. Probably the biggest program that we have that we raise funds for is the Critical Needs Program. And that is split out. You have a kind of a more detailed report on that. It's got this cover on it. That is split out across all kinds of different funding areas. We give every semester, we give funds to the, each school gets critical needs funds to use as they see fit for in their school what they define as critical needs. We base that amount on the free and reduced school lunch numbers. So every semester, we give funds to that. That was about 42% of the total from last year. The homeless program, they also receive, not only do they raise money, Jan Anderson does a great job raising money, we also raise money for that program. And those students received about 18% or 15% of that amount. I'm sure you've heard about all the great lunch funds that we've received. Not only, we have Jason Boynton here who helped the impetus behind Lunch Aid. Those funds were raised last fall, correct? And they took care of all the student debt from the 2018-19 school year. And we were very blessed this year. I'm sure you have heard that we got, excuse me, an anonymous donation to pay off the lunch debt through December 20th of this school year. So That was a very big surprise, and we were very grateful for that. So we continue to raise money for that, continue to receive funds for lunch, and although I know it's not the perfect solution for now, I think it's a great way to help the kiddos out. So we'll continue to do that and continue to work with Mr. Voighton, and lots of other people in the community are coming forward to ask how they can help, so we'll just continue to help with that. The hybrid food pantries, 6%, about just under $10,000. Each high school has one, and we make sure that, working in conjunction with Great Plains Food Bank, that not only is food provided through that, we also make sure that all those other needs are there. Hygiene supplies, hats, boots, mittens, clothing, gift cards, whatever each pantry deems as pertinent to their situation. And Liz's Closet, also hybrid food pantries in each middle school. And Got No Milk program, raise money for that. Haley's Milk Run every year is a bike ride that raises money so that those kids, you already do a great job of providing milk for all the free and reduced lunch kids, but there's still families that slip through the cracks, and we raise funds to cover those people, those folks. Again, we're going to participate in Giving Hearts Day. We've raised $20,000, secured $20,000 in match this year. It is a big part of the critical needs program, Giving Hearts Day. So that's going to be on February 13th. Some of the other things, we have done a few things last year. We have a new strategic plan and a new website, you can find the strategic plan on the new website. So go check it out and tell us what you think needs to be fixed on that, because the website is constantly changing and moving, and we want to make sure that it's everything's on there for everybody. I think the biggest addition to that is a new alumni page. We're able to connect with alumni, are able to connect with folks, and it's a great way for them to donate, find out what's going on at Fargo Public Schools, and update their contact information, check out their reunions. There'll be newsletters that'll come up. So we're excited about that. I think it'll help us get our message out and get your message out. The last thing that I'll add to this is our Adopt a School program is going strong. We have 20 partners. As you know, the Adopt a School program matches businesses, organizations, colleges, universities, individuals with area schools, and they help out with things like reading programs, tutoring, career readiness, career awareness, special events, mentoring, lunch buddy programs. We're always looking for connections and creating connections. Our newest one, we have a great one at Centennial, the Eventide Senior Living Center. That's been a great partnership. Right now, Hawthorne and Kennedy are looking for partners. So one of the great ways that we connect schools with businesses is from you all, the public, from the school, people in their schools themselves, because you might have a connection to a business. We will cold call, but it's always better to have that connection and make sure that we, what we do is we get the school and the business to talk to each other, and then we kind of get out of the way. Because each school has different needs, each business has different needs of what they can do. So it is an arduous process, but again, if we can find the right fit, take some extra time in nurturing, we can get that figured out so that every school has a partner. We're close. So, any questions? That was fast.
So is that Adopt a School on your guys' website too, so you can
Yes.
see what businesses they are?
Yes,
and where,
on the
you know,
bottom, there's like if you scroll down across every page, it says thank you to our Adopt a School partners, and all their logos are there, and you click on it, it goes to their business.
Thanks for everything you do, Becky.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So if somebody would want to make a donation, they can go to the website
Yes,
for this, and that's fargoschoolsfoundation.org.
.org, yes.
That's separate from the Fargo Public Schools website.
Yes, completely,
Okay.
yes. Although I
And-
think we're on your website too, if they find us. You can
Okay.
find us there as well.
Great.
Yes.
When they go to make a donation,
Yeah.
do they need to target where these donation dollars would go? Do you decide that?
If they say greatest need, we decide that, but they may also target, there's some choices on the main donation page, there's a few choices, and there's a top, you can type in, like, say you want it to go to the Husky Hutch, you can type that in there, and then we'll send that donation directly to that.
And is that the same if somebody wanted to partner with you to help run a fundraiser or
Yes.
something like that? They would also contact you via this information, and
Yes,
you can
yes.
help coordinate that and the reception of the
Yes.
dollars. And
Yes, that's a good example of that is recently the Lunch Aid was a fundraiser that went for a week. I think it was in the fall. It was all online. It raised almost $6,800 for lunch. But we coordinate that with them and make sure that one of the things we can do is give them their own link. And we were able to give them their own link called Lunch Fund. I said Lunch Aid, didn't I? Lunch Fund. And they're able to use that link over social media, and those funds come directly to us, and then we hold them until they get distributed for lunch funds.
thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you for guiding this program and growing it the way you have over the past several years.
Well, thank you for all your help
We're very
and
lucky to
support.
have you and have this program in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky, how long have you been in this position?
I've been with the Fargo Public Schools Foundation, I think, 7 years, and this 5 years.
Okay.
I could look.
I remember when the
I should know
foundation
that.
started.
Yes.
And I can say it has grown exponentially under your leadership.
Thank you.
Anytime I call, and if we get, people want to donate, and I just CC Becky, and she just says, got it. There's no questions asked. And I will say this, too, there are 2 people in that office that do all of this work. So Becky and Corey Ernst, thank you for all you do, because
Thank you.
it's making a huge impact on our community and our kids.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
On to staff reports, FEA report. Welcome, new President Mastrud.
Thank you. So with Dave Marquardt's resignation, I officially was elected by a representative assembly to be the president of FEA, and Heather Guy is now going to be our vice president of Fargo Education Association. Just wanted to talk with you a little bit about what Dean Rummel said. The issues here run a lot deeper than our 2 topics on the table, and as Mr. Hendrickson pointed out, FEA knows that there's been a fractured relationship between the board and our local teaching association, and we really want to work hard with our cabinet and with our board to continue these efforts in order to build these bridges, because ultimately we know we're on both of the same sides of the students. So we look forward to continuing that relationship. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Superintendent report, Dr. Gandhi.
Sure. Just a couple of quick things. First off, as referenced a little bit earlier, last week was our annual State of the Schools and Public Focus Group. So I want to thank everyone that participated and all of our community members that came out on a very cold day to be part of that process, but also thank our board members who served as facilitators or recorders. So thank you all for those that were able to be there in attendance as well. I think it was a great event and a good highlight for our school and a good opportunity for us to engage the community in where we want to go moving forward as a school district. The second thing is, this has been talked about with planning as well, but just giving an update to the board. We are, the planning committee has tasked administration to look at, conduct a feasibility study for a couple of options to discuss the potential of a future middle school that could serve as an 8th, 9th grade center. So we are working on doing some of that work, and we're looking to bring that to a potential work session or the next planning committee meeting in February as well, based on when some of that work is completed with the groups that we're working with. And then lastly, just an update to the board that earlier this month, the Fargo City Commission voted that they would like an updated letter from the Fargo Board of Education on whether or not our school buildings can be used as election polling sites. And they want that relatively quickly so they can make decisions as well. So that's going to be a business item that's going to be added to our January 28th board meeting with the board memo that'll be provided from administration. I know there's been a lot of conversation around that topic, even prior to me assuming the superintendent role. So we'll try to gather that information, but that will be something that I've worked with President Nelson on to make sure that we're able to address that and the board's able to look at that at the January 28th meeting, so then we can provide a updated letter to the city commission. And that is it.
Great, thank you. Anything else to report, Dad?
Nope, that is it. Coffee is good.
Congratulations, congratulations. Consent agenda. I would entertain a motion. Jim?
I move adoption of the consent agenda with the addition of the HR addendum.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda with with the HR addendum, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. All right, very good. Motion passes. Section 7, Business, 2019 Audit Report. I'll let you take over. It looks like Jackie's not here.
Sure, yeah, our business manager, Jackie Gap, is not here today, so I'll just introduce our audit report. I know some members of the planning committee wanted to walk through that document as well. But every year, we do get an audit of our financials as Fargo Public Schools. Normally, the independent audit agency, they're required to audit, one of the documents that they're required to audit, or at least partially audit, is our CAFR, which is our comprehensive annual financial report, and they will do an independent audit on our financials. This year, they just decided that because our CAFR is so extensive and so comprehensive, that they are just going to audit this document moving forward, and that is what they did this year. And we got the results that we wanted. On page 137, you'll see that the state auditor's office said that they offer an unmodified opinion, meaning that that is as clean of a report as we can get. So we are extremely proud of the work that we are doing from our business services department. I also want to thank Patty Richards, our accountant, that really puts a lot of this work in this extensive document together. It's a good overview of our finances as a district and where we're heading. Clearly, with the state auditor's office offering an unmodified opinion, it's a good rating for us as a district as well. So with that being said, I will hand it over. I know Jim had some comments, and if any of the planning other committee members had some comments as well.
Quickly before you start, Jim, so we are the only school district in the state of North Dakota that uses this CAFRE format?
That is what Jackie had shared at our last planning meeting as well, yep.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I just want to kind of take you through this document kind of at a 20,000-foot level and highlight a few things that jumped off the page to me and the planning committee. As Rupak said, the really great news, and it's not new news because it's been this way for quite a while, our business team does a pretty darn good job of putting our numbers on paper, and the auditor came in and once again gave us an unmodified opinion, which sounds weird, but that's exactly what you want. If it's a modified opinion, they're saying there's something you guys maybe want to tweak differently. So they looked at everything and gave us a clean bill of health. I'll start by just pulling you over to page 12, and I'll try to identify page numbers. That's really where they give us the nuts and bolts of their review of our financial information under the opinion section, where it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the government activities, and in accordance with the government standard accounting practices, GAAP rules. So it was an unmodified audit opinion, which is exactly what we're hoping to get. If you jump back a couple of pages to page 14, you really get kind of the 20,000-foot view of last year's budget scenario for the district under the financial highlights. You'll notice that we actually deficit spend last year, which should not be a surprise to the board. We actually authorized that to the tune of about $1.5 million. We had $185 million of total revenue and change, and we had $187 million of total expenditures, and we ended with about a $31 million fund balance that I'll come back to another page that shows that over time. A really interesting page is page 17. We've heard a lot of anecdotal thoughts about, is the district spending too much on administration, too little on staff, too much on this, too little on that? What you see on page 17, and it's globalized, it doesn't give you every line item, it branches them together into their big categories, is a comparison of 2018 expenditures to 2019. You'll notice on the instructional staff, we went from 112 million to 119 million for basic FTE teachers. The support staff for the instructional staff services also increased from 4.8 to 5.2. Interestingly, the general administrative services and the building school administrative services both dropped, as did business services. So we're actually spending less dollars on the administrative side, more dollars on the instructional side, which obviously is where we'd like to see the dollars be invested. If you jump over to page 23, you'll actually get our general fund balance information, and it shows you historically going back to 2009. Last year, we ended with $31,852,867, which was down a little bit from the previous year. And of course, based on the budget we passed just recently for this coming year, if all things work out the way they were forecast, we'll actually drop that down a little bit more, because once again, we approved a deficit budget. Page 26 gives us all of our outstanding debt. These are the bonds primarily used for the construction projects in the district over time. And you also see the rest of our overall long-term debt obligations on this page, which are $281 million, which is a big number. It's one of the reasons we want to have a fund balance, because we have obligations going on in the future, and quite frankly, our revenues in the future are not guaranteed. Of the $281 million of long-term debt, $180 million are the state pension plans, both TFFR and PERS. And I'll just go on record and tell you I think that's underestimated, because they are using a factor of growth on those funds that may or may not be achieved. Could be greater growth that we actually get, or it could be less. So this is a moving liability, and it's charted each year by the folks out in Bismarck, and luckily they don't send us the bill to pay it up in full in one day. Obviously, the plans are both sustainable at this point in time, but they have a underfunded liability that over time they're hoping to catch up. And I think that time frame is someplace in the neighborhood of 30 plus years. So I probably won't be here. Maybe most of you won't be here the day those funds actually get full, if ever, which could or couldn't happen, could or could not happen. If you jump back to page 95, you'll see a 10-year comparison of the general fund expenditures of the district. This will really give you a sense of the trend of how we've been spending money. And again, it's broken out into the broad categories that make up the individual line items of our budget. And clearly, as we go forward and we forecast the future, we need to make some assumptions. Number one, what's the rate of expenditure growth that we're going to experience as a district? 2.5%, 3.5%, someplace in that range of a percentage. And what would we need for increased revenues then to maintain that? So it's that trend line that really is going to determine, first from a board perspective, what issues we feel we're going to face for financial sustainability. And then on the superintendent and the administration operationally, how do they operate to be as effective and efficiently as possible to deliver what we're hoping for results for our students. Page 96 actually gives you the 10-year forecast, showing us where our general fund revenues came in. And again, keep in mind as you look at this, there is a target date coming up in the future. We will once again be frozen at the local level. The vote that was, fortunate the community supported us, was only good for 10 years, and that clock is ticking. So again, as we plan for the future and look for sustainability, we're going to have to keep our eye on that date in the future and decide when and if do we go to the public, or will we be happy to have the local revenues frozen as a dollar amount and then diminish over time as a mill levy amount. Page 132, I found pretty fascinating. Maybe nobody else will, but it actually took all of the ways we spend money, and I mean all of the ways, and divided it by our ADM, our average daily membership, and it comes out that we are expending about $17,000 per ADM, which is a little different than per student because our weighted average is an ADM, but it's probably as close a yardstick as you need. And of course, some of that has nothing to do per se with ongoing operational expenses. We actually have to pay for these buildings that we have classrooms in as well. So all of it was boiled in here to really figure out last year, total expenditures as a district, what does that equal to on a per ADM basis? $17,030. Pretty significant number to say the least. And last, and certainly not least, page 137 is where the auditor results show up. And as Rupak had indicated, we got an unmodified opinion in all three areas, meaning they basically gave us the good housekeeping seal of approval on the financial reporting that Jackie and her team did. Now, Jackie is not here, and I'm probably going to speak a little out of turn, but I don't know how many of you looked at this document, and maybe you didn't because it was just provided today, but when you look through it, you're going to go, holy crap, how long did they work on this, and who put this together? I think it was Mary? Patty Richards is the author of this document. And obviously creating it the first time was a huge, huge endeavor, but updating it each year with new data is not a small job either. So from my perspective, and on behalf of the planning committee, a big shout out kudos to our business team, and in particular to Patty, for just an outstanding report. And with that, I'll open it up to questions or other comments.
Thank you for the update, Jim. That
Could
is
I
a
make a
business
motion,
item,
too?
absolutely.
And I'd like to also move that we accept the audit report as provided in this lovely bound document.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the audit report or accepting it?
Just, I would like to thank you, Jim, for the added detail, stepping in for Jackie and bringing forth the items that are of importance for all of us and the public to know as well. There is a lot of time and energies put into it, and it's important to show the correct picture. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I have a question for you, Jim. On page 132, where you say that our average ADM expense is $17,030, do you know how that compares with the rest of the state? And how would we find that out?
And unfortunately, I don't think the rest of the state is producing this kind of a document where they'd take all of their capital expenditures and boil it into there as well. Typically, all you see when you look at a state report is the general fund dollars, which quite frankly are not apples to apples from one district to the next. So I don't have a yardstick to give you, and I don't know what our number would have been in previous years either. But going forward, we're gonna have a baseline now to measure against. And I suspect more and more districts are gonna go to this approach, so we'd have hopefully comparable data to measure against.
Quick follow-up. And then the current foundation aid is approximately 10,000. I don't know exactly how much, but
9482, but that's for a 1.0 weighting factor.
right. So not, just barely half what it costs us.
And that's also, I mean, that's what it is from the terms of state funding, but that's not our realized foundation aid because we also have our own deducts in there, so you have to take those into consideration as well.
David, you can go on the website at DPI and they give the information over the years of mill levies, everything that you probably want to know. It's probably not going to be in this format, but kind of gives you a ballpark. And it's county by county. They do that, and it's on DPI's financial facts.
Okay. I don't see any further hands. We are ready for vote. Anne Marie?
Johnson,
Yes.
Knutson, Yes. Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes?
Rodenbacher,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
President Nelson.
Yes, motion carries. Item 7B, award of a proposal for architect for Explorer Academy construction and Lewis and Clark remodel, memo number 71. Go ahead.
Sure. So as you'll see in your memo packet, we had proposals that were received for architect services for the Explorer Academy at Lewis and Clark. We included the rubric that we used for the proposals, and we did interview all the proposals that applied for this project, and we are recommending that the board authorize administration to enter a contractual agreement with YHR Services for 6.75% fee for the design of Setting D program at Lewis and Clark Elementary School.
Okay, this is a business item.
I move that we authorize administration to enter into the contractual agreement for architectural services with YHR Partners for 6.75% fee for design of the Setting D program at Lewis and Clark Elementary.
Second.
Motion's on the floor. Questions, discussion? Go ahead, John.
Is there someone here that could answer maybe some questions about the criteria? I am curious what past performance public projects would be versus related experience similar projects.
We have Jim Free that can come up here.
Thank you. Just for your information, the criteria here comes right out of the North Dakota Century Code for government entities to pick these here. Past performance, public projects, and what was your question, John, again?
And then the second line is related experience similar projects.
Okay, I think past performance would be like, maybe I'd look at it how they did in, they send a book with all their projects typically. Some of these architects we haven't worked before, like YHR, it's been many years. So we look through their directory of buildings that they built, and then we try to compare education facility, might be a hospital, it might be whatever. So whatever we're trying to build here, we're trying to match with what they did in the past. So was it a public project? Was it for a municipality? Was it a church? Those type of comparisons, if you will. And then related experience, we would look at that as maybe more on a local basis. Did they work for West Fargo? Was it a Liberty Middle School or something like that? In making those comparisons in that way. I don't know if that answered your questions, but.
That does. I have a follow-up question to that, if I may. Who judges the criteria and assigns these scores for each of the candidates?
I'm typically on that committee, and this time Dr. Gandhi was on that committee, and we did have an alternate for him in case he had to go and have his little daughter sooner than expected, so we thought it would be fair to have somebody sit in on that so they could get in on all the interviews. And then also Jackie Gap, business manager, is on there. So three people.
One last question. The 6.75% fee, that is 6.75% of what number?
Of the actual bid when it comes in. So if it comes in $500,000 under the bid, that is money that we would pay less on architectural fees, but it's the actual cost of the building, all the contractors' bids collectively put together.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, seeing no hands, we are ready for another vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca?
I do have one question in regard to some of the individuals, the professionals that toured the facility and did research on it. Were all three of the individual or of the groups that provided proposals to us involved in seeing any of those buildings? I know I was only on one of those visits.
Dr. Gandhi, you were on a visit to Minneapolis, I believe, St. Paul. Is that correct?
I actually did not make it out. I know
Okay.
Dr. Gross went to two
Oh,
of the
that's
three,
right.
yep.
That's right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, my question was more in regard to Michael Burns, EAPC, and YHR Partners.
YHR is the only partner that went with us on that trip.
And how, I'm curious how that was determined. Are they invited, or how does that work?
If you recall, they were doing the feasibility study for us at the time, and I think it was just over a cup of coffee. We said, we should probably go down, because we had questions about, if you see it, you get a better understanding of how to make that report better, and then we ended up traveling down and taking people with us, so.
Certainly, thank you.
I think one thing I want to mention is, as Jim mentioned, that YHR did the feasibility study prior to even the board vote on this, and that is the time when they visited the facilities. Another thing that to know in the YHR proposal was that this did include consultation with BWBR. BWBR is the architect firm that worked on Carner Blue and Pancalo, which were the facilities that were seen in the cities. So part of that proposal was YHR partnership consulting with BWBR.
From the rating, is it safe to assume that we have never worked with YHR before?
Yes, it's been many, many years since we've worked with YHR. So that's why you see a 0 in
Okay.
the scoring there. That's correct.
I don't see any other hands. I think we're ready now. Anne Marie?
Knutson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
President Nelson.
Yes, motion carries. Next item in the agenda is 7C, Board Compensation. I would draw your attention to memo number 68. Go ahead, John.
President Nelson, I would move that the board compensation remain $1,000 per month.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Okay. Motion is ready to be discussed, or questions? Assume you would like to discuss that, John.
Robin, if you give me a second here. Thank you. The memo calls this compensation. I think it's important to recognize what this is really doing is $1,000 a month isn't nothing, but it is more of a stipend thanking us for our service to our community. Working on the board is quite an effort, and there are a lot of responsibilities with this. And it's timely that this is coming up right now, as it's also an election year for the school board, and there are a lot of people potentially considering running for a seat on the board. And so if you'd give me a moment to discuss what we do here, I think this would be a good discussion. First of all, legally, the North Dakota Century Code lays out the powers and responsibilities of school boards. It's mostly under Title 15.1 in Section 9 of that code. That includes our authority to tax and our responsibilities for what we are entrusted with our public dollars. It's interesting to note into that title, the Fargo Board of Education is called out in several sections specifically because I believe our body predates the state. The Board of Education itself governs itself under a governance policy model, and we lay out our governance processes, define our board superintendent relationship, and our executive limitations, and dividing the work between the board and the superintendent through these policies. And in particular, in our policy GP3E, we call out 5 particularly important responsibilities. That includes the legal responsibility for control of the public schools in the district, the civic responsibility of providing quality education, a service essential for the life of the community, social responsibility to ensure that all schools serve as centers for growth and the development of students in our community, the economic responsibility for prudent management of our public resources, and moral and ethical responsibilities to function expediently and impartially to assure the greatest good to the greatest number at all times. So practically, what does all of that mean? It means that we're here tonight. We meet in regular session 22 times over the course of a year, usually on the 2nd and the 4th Tuesdays of the month, except for in July and December. That's quite a commitment. Additionally, we have adopted the practice of having 2 work sessions a year. That's usually a full business day that we're expected to discuss the meatier matters of the district without actually taking action on business at those, but giving us time to work through these. Additionally, this is something that I have found in discussing the work of the board that a lot of people are not aware of. We are all assigned to 2 to 4 committees of the board, in addition to liaison appointments for other organizations. Our policy GP7 defines our committees and how often they meet. Most of those committees meet at least monthly, again, usually during a business day in the morning or over a noon hour. The liaison appointments vary. Oftentimes those are meeting during a day. We hold ourselves to an expectation of continuing professional development as board members. And so we expect that we will usually attend the North Dakota School Board Association Annual Convention, generally 2 days in late October during the business week. Also, there's the North Dakota School Board Association Negotiations Seminar, usually 1 or 2 days every spring. And the National School Board Association Annual Convention, that's usually 3 to 4 days, a couple of business days, and usually over the weekend. Then in addition to those kind of formal things, we also have our school liaison appointments. We each have been assigned to 2 or 3 schools in our district, and we recently increased our expectations for those visits, that they're not just going to be a stop by, but in the words of our policy, we're expected to engage in a variety of activities throughout the school year with the students, the school staff, and parents to gain an understanding of the school and of our district's operations. We have constituent contacts, I'm sure. This would vary by each individual and maybe their personal networks, but we're expected to inform and engage the public following our board policy. Also maybe part of those liaison assignments. We don't replace the normal channels for resolving problems, and we're not specific advocates for students or parents or staff of a particular school, but we are there to help ensure that concerns and questions and complaints are responded to appropriately by our personnel through our superintendent. And speaking of the superintendent, we're expected to have a good working relationship with our superintendent, and so this might vary as well, but we're expected to have at least some planned interaction with our superintendent so that we know, so that we have a relationship. And finally, all of this doesn't mean a whole lot if we haven't prepared ourselves and follow up on those commitments. And that's going to vary by each board member as well, but that is also a significant undertaking. Tonight, as a great example, we received a 140-page comprehensive annual financial report. And thank you, Jim, for your summary tonight. But it's also still our duty to have read through that and done our best to understand it and have found any concerns. Everything on this agenda tonight we received as homework. All of our committees have homework. The chairs of the committees have a special burden to run those committees and make sure that they're prepared to run those effectively. And so in conclusion, I just wanted again to remind ourselves all of what we do here, what we're getting compensated for, and with that I will close my discussion. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for that outline. Any further discussion on this motion on the floor? Okay, Emery, are you clear on the motion?
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Rowan Baker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Benson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Knutson. Yes. President Nelson.
Yes, motion carries. The next agenda item is we go into board reports, committee liaison and correspondence reports. Shall we start with Brian Nelson this evening?
Sure, I don't think I've ever been first, so this is a good deal. 2 planning sessions I have attended. I was at a GAC meeting this morning, and the State of the Schools address on this past Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday the 7th, so a week ago. So that's what I've done.
Brandy?
Thank you. This morning, I also attended the GAC meeting. And then on January 5th, I did attend the FYI Fargo Youth Initiative meeting as well. And Catlin from the city of Fargo, she is the one that runs that. And so I am the liaison of that. And they're actually doing a lot of really awesome things. They've got subcommittees now, and they're focusing on youth poverty and homeless, mental health, and new American integration. So the kids are working on that, and they're just doing a lot of research, and we're very excited about what they're going to come up with and feedback from that. So I'm very proud of them, and they do a lot of work. And I did get a chance to meet with one of the former students that graduated last year from North. We actually sat down and had dinner last night, and she goes to Harvard, and she said it's really interesting now that she's been there for almost a year how she comes back to Fargo, and it really is Fargo nice, because she's seen a lot of different stuff down in Boston. So she was very happy to come back and visit, and we had a really nice discussion. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Christy?
I too have had 2 planning meetings. I've had a FPS Foundation Board meeting, was at the State of the Schools in the focus group, and also attended Eggs and Issues where they talked with the Career and Tech Ed.
Jim?
Since we last met, we had governance. As you've heard, 2 planning meetings. This morning, we had a short GAC meeting and kind of just an update for everybody that wasn't on GAC. I'm going to be putting together a list of all of our current senators and representatives. And one of the strategies that GAC is going to recommend to the board is that we have an informal connection, probably sometime this spring, without an agenda, just to get together for coffee, lunch, breakfast, whatever, one-on-one with those legislators, to see what questions they have about Fargo Public Schools and get a sense from them on what they see coming up in the legislative session. So I'll be putting that list together and then probably reaching out to all of you to see, who would you like to be assigned to, because I prefer, if you have somebody that you really do want to connect with, that we have you assigned to that person. I was at Eggs and Issues with several others as they talked about the Career Tech Academy, and hopefully we'll see that vote come up at Cass County later this month, and depending upon how that goes, the likelihood of the academy coming to fruition will be hopefully on the near term. I was at the State of the Schools last week. We had an SEEC board meeting since we last met, and I had the fortunate or unfortunate opportunity to spend 3 days in Austin, Texas, learning what Texas is doing with board governance. Texas actually passed a law. I don't know if it's Senate Bill 3 or House Bill 3. It's number 3, and it requires every school district in Texas to have 3 goals, and only 3 goals. Now, they actually said you could have 2 more, but no more than 5. Number 1, improve 3rd grade reading scores. Number 2, improve 3rd grade math scores. And number 3, career, college, military ready at graduation. every school district in Texas has got to, number one, establish what their goals are, and then how they're going to get to that goal on an annual basis. They are going to be laser focused primarily on third grade reading, because quite frankly, if you can't do the reading, you're not going to succeed at the math either. They've had several school districts. When I say several, they never gave me a number. I'm asking for that data. It will hopefully come to me. That piloted this program 3 to 5 years ago. That they are indicating, again, I want the data, have made significant strides on what they call their STARS, which is their state assessment, to the tune of a 20% improvement of third graders reading at grade level, which is huge. I mean, if that's true data, and I'll hopefully have it within a couple of weeks, there's maybe something every school district in North Dakota can learn from this. Not that we need a law passed, but maybe by boards being more focused, makes the district more focused, makes the outcome more likely. Now, personally, I thought the whole training could be done in about a half a day, but they took 3. It's the Texas way, I guess. But once I get that data, I'll certainly be sharing it with our administrative team, and we'll see where that goes for the state of Texas. There were 2 senators from North Dakota in the delegation. There were 8 of us from North Dakota. Both of them were taking lots of notes, which may be good, may be bad. Could be that we'll start seeing a more prescriptive dialogue coming out of our legislature on what we as districts need to do in North Dakota. Although both Senator Scheibele and Senator Davison indicated it's really not the North Dakota way to dictate. We'd rather lead by example and hope people decide to follow. So we'll see where that all goes. And I think that was it.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I, too, was at governance. I listened in on the most recent planning committee meeting, was at GAC for observation this morning. Saturday, as a liaison to the Native American Commission, I was at the powwow that was at the Civic Center. And that was the powwow that is held annually. It has been on New Year's Eve, but they chose to have it a little later this time. It's their New Year's celebration still. Also in connection with the Native American Commission, I met with, the beginning of January, I met with Chelsea Snyder. I know, Robin, she's visited or contacted you as well. She is the Fargo-Moorhead Native American Programs Consultant, so the person that's in charge of kind of getting that organization up and running, funding it, and just kind of putting a structure together for that. And we visited for quite some time. Dr. Gandhi, I believe she's going to be sending you and me a memo. I think it'll come via email, just to open up a discussion in terms of how and where the district or the board fits in with that structure. And I know she's reaching out, to many different stakeholders within the community. So hopefully we will receive that soon. We can visit about it once we get that. And Robin, I'll let you know too. I thought that the Eggs and Issues meeting was fabulous. It was one of the best, as far as I'm concerned. I guess it deals with exactly some of the issues that we've been talking about, but all of the presentations were really, really great, and I would love it if we could get something set up for board members to visit the school in Bismarck, if we can get that to work out as some of our, professional development to help us make decisions as we move forward. The State of the Schools event, I've heard such good feedback on that. Certainly, I think we're open to suggestions if there needs to be improvement, but I've heard very positive remarks from individuals that attended the large meeting, and then also we had great engagement in our group. Really looking forward to going through that information and seeing where we can utilize potentially some of the feedback in regard to community engagement, and maybe where our current communications committee could fit within that. I know my group gave some feedback that I think could be useful. We have a communications committee meeting coming up, 7:30 a.m., January 29th, that's Wednesday. I was at the State Fact-Finding Commission meeting, and I will be at the State of the Cities event Thursday for the chamber. I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. I was at the State of the Schools event last week, and I have to echo Rebecca's comments that it was outstanding. Very good discussion in the focus group I was in afterwards regarding the social emotional learning going on in our schools, turning our schools into trauma aware, bringing the restorative practices to our district. Lots of excitement there. I think one of my liaison schools, Eagles Elementary, was having a social emotional learning night tonight that I'm anxious to talk to Principal Lingle and the staff down there to see how that went. I thought your address was excellent, Dr. Gandhi. The Hear It for the Kids was outstanding. I've been hearing so many positive comments about how interesting and engaging those two were and how they've turned this into a really fun conversation. And I have to give credit to Anne Marie and her team and everyone that was involved in the coordination of all of this. This is an absolutely massive event to keep these focus groups together, get facilitators and recorders and timekeepers all in the right rooms, help people wandering in off the street find a discussion area, and it all went off, from what I could tell, without a hitch. It's essentially magic, so kudos to all of you. I was at the next evening, the Education Fact-Finding Commission. We should expect a report, President Nelson, you should expect a report from Commissioner Rummel. I am thinking this week. Last Wednesday, he said it would be delivered within 7 to 10 days, so I'd take that by the end of this week. And I think we'll have to, as a board, potentially come together maybe a little sooner than our next scheduled regular meeting. If we need to discuss this, we'll see what the report lays out. But we will be meeting with the FEA soon after that comes out. Then finally, last night, not one of my liaison schools, but I was at North High for their activities and extracurricular night. And this was, they invited all of the 8th graders from Ben Franklin Middle School to North, divided them up into, I believe, 12 groups, and then gave everybody an opportunity to see the wide variety of extracurricular and elective activities that are offered for programs up there. And it was dizzying for me, the variety we have, something for everyone. They had cleared out the lunchroom and turned it into a space for each club to make their pitch to the kiddos wandering through. I mean, we have everything from fishing clubs and trap shooting now to golf and, of course, football and hockey and all those sports, environmental clubs, thespian clubs, the DECA, and I'm going to forget somebody, so I'm going to stop talking, but and seeing the pride of the instructors, the pride of most of those instructors had students with them speaking and giving their little pitch of why you should consider this. And I know we've seen time and time again how important having these additional activities are to keeping our students engaged, to increasing their outcomes and graduation rates. And we were very lucky to be able to offer that here in this district. I know growing up in Little Old Rock Lake, North Dakota, we'd had nowhere near this breadth of opportunities. And so it's very exciting to see, and I hope we can continue that going into the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Jennifer?
I would echo everyone's comments on the Eggs and Issues CTE presentation last week. I was there that morning, State of the Schools that evening, state fact-finding the next day, 2 planning meetings. Upcoming will be next week, Health Insurance Committee and Communication. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that additional information, Jim, around the Austin, Texas seminars that you attended. I've heard Kirsten speak of similar research at the state conference, and so I think it's obviously very important that we're having that discussion and that we're doing that now, ahead of even, probably many. So there's important research out there that supports those efforts, and so I look forward to those continued discussions. And I think that was, and the chamber event on Thursday, I will be there as well.
Thank you. David?
Since our last board meeting, we had a negotiations committee meeting. I had a working lunch with Dr. Gandhi. The state of the schools, the focus group that I was part of this year was the best group there has been so far. That just seems to be getting better and better. I attended the fact-finding commission meeting and the government affairs meeting this morning, and I too will be at the city commission.
Thank you. My personal reports, I visited CBE, Hawthorne, and I'm scheduled for Jefferson on Thursday. I did, speaking, since Becky's still here, I did help arrange for the Masonic Lodge up north to sponsor the entire school's scholastic books, their subscriptions, as many grades as they can get through, and there's some match dollars there, and so sometimes that happens when my liaison schools and people ask me to find a match. So thank you for being so willing to do that, Becky. I had a great opportunity on December 18th, and I delivered food baskets to FPS families. And this was coordinated by Jen Saar and Amy Riccio and the Swifts, and so donated food, and it was very interesting to see where some of our families live. But every time I got a huge hug and a God bless you and some tears, and one cute little toddler was jumping up and down and clapping. She was so exciting. So that was a very special event. My liaison board for Fargo Public Health did adopt a resolution to raise the minimum age for all tobacco and vaping products to 21. So I'm not quite sure if that'll go to the city, but we were all on board with that. On December 17th, I completed the City of Fargo by phone, the Children and Family Services Survey regarding federal HUD dollars. The committee meetings which I attended were 2 planning, 1 governance, 1 negotiations, and governmental affairs this morning. Did some other negotiations work around that. Attended the fact-finding commission, state of schools at South High, and then a forum and editorial meeting as well, the middle of December. And then for the president's reports, I think that's all laid out there for you. The next governance committee meeting is January 23rd. And I'm sure we'll see you a lot more in between that time. Is there anything else you need to add as far as RSVPs for traveling, Anne-Marie?
There's some notes on that president's report. If those who are wanting to go to negotiation seminar could please see me tonight, because I plan to make those arrangements tomorrow, that'd be great. And then there's some other RSVPs out there that you need to get to me. So if you could, make sure you check your email or check that report, that'd be great. I have added some additional dates onto that report of upcoming, so you might want to cross-reference those with your calendar. And some of them are into the summer next fall, but wanted to make you aware of those as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for taking care of us, as usual. Okay. Our next regular board meeting is January 28th, and we are adjourned.